The power of unity is the strongest political power to harness. The act of working together towards a common understanding and compassion can bring back astonishing results. Because of this reality, the power of a collective community has been controlled by the people in power, either by preventing or harnessing. It depends on their goal, whether it is to keep or to change the status quo of the society. This manipulation of collective power can be seen through two pieces of work: The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, with its longing for such unity, and Donald Trump's speech, with its desperation for such unity. Shown through the use of language, the influence of the state on the people are shown in two different ways. As Alfred is about to walk into a room, she hears noises of chatting, the form of information from personal feelings, through the mouths of the martyrs. The martyrs are the group of that is also being oppressed, but is still higher than the handmaids. Coincidentally, they are talking about Alfred. When they are talking to each other, a sense of collective community through the act of sharing information to reach a greater understanding and compassion, and in a way to harden the unity within the group of martyrs. Compare this to when Alfred walks in. Suddenly, the friendly atmosphere turns into one of confrontation with another group, a lower one. In here, Margaret Atwood had chosen the type of personal pronouns used to make sure that the differentiation of the two groups is made clear as day. When Alfred fantasizes about what could have been, she uses we repeatedly. This repetition of the use we shows through the brokenness of her thoughts and the strong sense and desire for such we. From line 8 to line 16, Margaret echoes the same word of we, such as, and we would sit at Rita's kitchen table, which is not Rita's anymore, then my table is mine. And we will talk about aches, pains, and illnesses. The first pronoun here is used when she is in that group. A sense of collective community, and they could talk about their pain, their life, their knowledge through gossip, and they would understand each other just by signaling facially. Alfred is longing for the membership of this community and to break through the wall of this state-made division and to seek the power of a collective community in the pursuit of human compassion, empowerment, and a greater understanding of their life, their environment, their society, their world, and their government. But then, Alfred pops back to reality. First pronouns turn into third pronouns, and instead of using we, she uses they. And she addresses individuals by she or just their names. There is no sense of unity. She is separating between her and them in this internal conversation in her mind. The close bonds between these two oppressed groups, both sides, are two separate entities. Alfred has this pulling urge to fraternize her with the martyrs, to form a collective community of understanders, knowers, sharers, and comrades, where knowledge could be shared and thoughts are heard and discussed. But the hierarchy of the Gilead does not allow such bonds to be formed, because they've divided the oppressed population into classes, to prevent any unity of knowledge and shared experience and interests to be created. Since the creation of such will challenge the status quo of the oppressed that Gilead used to rule the land and the people. I hunger to touch, she said, other than cloth or wood. I hunger to commit the act of touch. At line 25 from the extract, where Alfred describes the act of touching almost like it's a crime, a strange, scarce, and almost illicit act, that the bond that she desired with the martyr is also unlawful. This has succeeded in dividing them, the oppressed woman, to succumb to the system control of unionizing. Martha uses a commanding tone with Alfred. "Tell them fresh," she says. And at the end, Alfred says, stoic in expression, and says, "Why to tempt for friendship?" The passage here shows a success story, not from the community of the oppressed civilians, but the achievement of the higher-ups in dividing and preventing the possible power of the collective community toward a greater understanding and future. The power of the collective community is smaller in this case, and the goal of achieving the greater understanding is greatly restricted. Unity in this context is a desirable weapon that is being controlled and blocked. In contrast to the Handmaid's Tale, Donald Trump in this position of the state, he is the leader, the speaker, and his goal is to unite his country after a sad event to become a collective community. No politicians waste a good strategy to gain something. And after the mass shooting, Donald Trump uses it to rally both sides of his very divided nation to become bipartisanship. The unity of a nation is in the darkest time can help keep it going, surviving, and even thriving. This speech, therefore, does not focus on him much, since it would be very inappropriate to do so in this context, and to an audience that either admire him or is against him. Unlike the Handmaid's Tale, where the first pronouns and third pronouns are used to differentiate between desire and reality, Trump exclusively uses the first pronoun of we. We must do this, we must do that. The use of this word clearly shows evidently and plainly his intention to include his audience into his collective community of sorrow, of a nation going through dark times. This is unusual still for Trump. Most of his past speeches include I as a prominent personal pronoun, since most of his speeches are about him and only his accomplishments. This works beautifully with the people who already like him, but might not work so well here. The greater understanding here can be seen through as a greater unity and compassion between both sides of the political aisles. He blamed the cause, the evil, the bad side onto the shooter, or as he called it, this monster, at line 9 in his speech. He claims the root of many things, which is suggesting an interesting strategy being used here. He then talks about the possibility of solution and continuously uses the word we in it, as if he is trying his best to bring the audience in as a collective community doing this collective action. Trump first began his speech by using very emotive language such as evil contagion or powerless. This use of pathos in the beginning helps to draw the audience in and help to evoke emotions, which can translate to powerful action as a collective community, and might even create an atmosphere of sympathy. But then immediately seeks to talk about the idea of a collective community and its power to heal wounds. Of course, in a classic Trump speech, he always uses repetition, especially at the end of his speech when he says, "Our future is in our control," to give an idea that the power of this unity and a collective community by seeking a greater understanding of each other, or more correctly, setting aside those arguments so that our future is in our control. And by the end, a big repetition happened. America will rise to the challenge. We will always win, will win. The choice is ours and ours alone. It is not up to mentally ill monsters, it is up to us. This, of course, to evoke nationalism, and in a sense of unity within his audience, almost quite weak, but it's still there. To re-emphasize on the idea of responsibility, Trump continuously used the modal verb of must, such as we must reform our mental health laws to better identify mentally disturbed individuals at line 17. It is almost like he is trying to command his nation and this supposedly collective community to go his way, to do his reform, to work toward his idea of greater future. Now let's go back to the extract again, and even though before in this paragraph we said that he only used we, he actually also used I one time, and that time is in line 22 to 23 when he says, "Today I'm also directing at the Department of Justice." So he is using ethos here as a way to build his reputation of a solver, a leader almost. This might be his way of political gaining for his voter base later on in the future. Even though this speech is short, it does demonstrate Trump's ideal, vision, and his wish for a collective community working toward a greater understanding and compassion. These two extracts, one from The Handmaid's Tale and the other from Donald Trump's speech, have shown us two different sides of the collective community and the state's manipulation of its power. In The Handmaid's Tale, the state structure and hierarchy had prevented a unionization of the oppressed population from sharing information and emotionally empowering each other toward a greater understanding and a greater action. This is visibly Gilead's attempt to retain the status quo of its bleak society. Compare this to Trump, where the state, him, is the people trying to conduct a collective community by attempting to glue two conflicting political aisles of his country, the US, which prevents the possibility of power that a collective community can have toward a greater understanding.